Caddis Maximus here, this time with a quick review of the Pittsburgh 12-inch 4-piece file set that's only 12 bucks on the shelf. Really pretty decent price. And the only reason you really would pick up these Pittsburghs is one, they are pretty cheap for 12-inch files. You could easily spend 50 bucks or more on the 4-piece 12-inch set from like a Nicholson or a more premium brand. So certainly don't expect these to last as long as a premium brand. But they're overall not too bad. They're 4-piece file set, and they have what they call polyurethane handles with a rubber overmold. A little bit slick, and we'll hope that the handles hold on. That's usually one of the biggest issues with files, is the way the handles will want to pull off. Otherwise, I'll get a closer look in a minute here, but one thing that caught my eye, and the reason I picked these up, is one, they're bastard files. So you get a half round, you get a triangular, you get a round bastard, and then you get a tapered flat. These are not mill files. These are more for roughing work. But was the really nice cut on these. That's what I was getting at. I was actually pretty surprised. It's one thing to have a set of cheap files that's both not as good a quality steel and dull out faster. But when a cheap file also has a very poor cut on it, then they're just almost completely useless. Where these will actually cut, but who knows for exactly how long. Actually, let me go ahead and get a little more zoom in here. Here we go. There's some magnification. Now you should be able to see that they have, and I believe this is proper with files where they have a really deep first cut and then a much lighter secondary cut. If we go look at the flat, it's the same deal. It's actually really surprising. They do have proper edge cuts, although you can see part of the cheapness where they did the edge and then they did the top surface, and it left a bit of a burr on each side, although that will break off pretty quickly. If we look at the half round, there is some dented spots, like right here, where I'm sure that occurred from the packaging where they were beating against each other. You can tell it's pretty hard steel because the metal didn't roll over, it actually chipped off. But you can see they actually have improved their tooling to make the cuts on these files, because it is surprisingly consistent. Even if we go up and down the file, it's not like it's getting deeper or shallower. And even on the round one, really pretty surprising. Let's go ahead and zoom back out here. And as far as hardened, so they are for general roughing work. Some tips: if you're working with really soft metals like aluminums, lots of times waxing your files can help the particles from building up. They make special scrubbers called file cards to also clean out files, because a big portion of the action of the file is that it has a bunch of teeth and it's cutting kind of like a saw blade. So they make file cards which you use to scrape them out. If you don't have one of those, try to get a wire brush, something like this stainless steel one here. This will offer bristles that are rigid enough so that if the file starts getting clogged up, you'll actually physically brush out, quote unquote, brushing the teeth of the file out so you can get another grip. This is a piece of hardened steel shim stock, so any file which should be hard enough to easily be able to get some bite on that, and I can easily see that it's getting bite, and starting to go ahead and file off this piece of shim stock, so I know at least they have a decent amount of hardness. It's really amazing. You just use a file, do a few passes, and then actually just brush it out with a seal brush, and you'll get great grip every time. And you'll be able to feel when it starts dulling, because it just won't grab your fingers as much. You'll also be able to put it up into the light, and you will see the little flats with the little teeth. So they will eventually, some of them will round, many of them, the very bleeding cutting edge is what breaks, and you'll see the reflection. But overall, for $3 a file for large rough cutting bastard files, these are the kind that you are going to do some rough work and you are going to wear out the file, and so these may be cost effective for a lot of people. Unless you're doing a lot of file work, these would be just fine for most shop needs. And if you just do a bunch of work, say with the flat file, or you really bend it, you don't feel so bad about it. And this is one of those items where just a high carbon steel, what a file's made out of, so they can be very hard, means that even though a much more premium grade file that may cost $15 or even $20 for a single 12-inch file may last longer, I don't think it's going to last 3 to 5 times longer, i.e. diminishing returns. And another quick point is that these are actually relatively straight. I'm really also pleased about that. It's always one of the worst things, particularly sometimes on these half rounds where they end up getting a bit warped just due to the way their shape and manufacture. So they were even paying attention to that. So the quality has definitely stepped up. These files used to be, a decade or more ago, these big files at Harbor Freight were really not any good. And so they have improved the quality of the steel, and I'm still surprised at the prices that they're selling them at. So anyway, that was just kind of a detailed overview of these files. I've actually had a few questions about these, and actually wanted to pair more beater files for more kind of ugly type of work where you may actually get the files dirty and that type of stuff. It's always nice to have a cheap repair, and actually these don't feel so bad. And to tell you the truth, the rubber overmold may actually help in some situations because it provides just a little bit of cushioning. So it's a little bit of a transition from the old wooden handles. Hopefully those handles do stay on. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.